Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to launch the start of our Asian Tea Week. My name is Judy Wu. I'm a professor of Asian American Studies and also the director of the Humanities Center. I want to acknowledge our co-sponsors for this series of events this week. They are the UCI Humanities Center, the Center for Asian Studies, UCI Illuminations, and the Jordan Center for Persian Studies. And I especially want to thank our staff organizers, Ju Hoon Sin, Saeed Jalalpur, and Amanda Swain. Today we have an incredible treat. It's a conversation with Professor Yong Chen, who's a renowned expert on Chinese and Chinese American food. He's a professor of history as well as the associate dean in the School of Humanities. He's the author of Chop Suey USA, History of Chinese Restaurants in the United States. And he's also working on a new project related to food and beverages from Taiwan. Audrey Fong is an anteater. She graduated in 2019 with a BA in English, and I was so fortunate to be able to work with her as a student. She wrote a wonderful honors thesis that looks at historical memory and cultural memory of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Since graduating, she's been working as a social media and digital content coordinator for the School of Humanities. She has a wealth of really fun interests and is part of a Boba blogging duel with a great name of @BobaBitches, or actually Bitchness. I'm going to turn this over to Professor Yong Chen and to Audrey.
Sorry for the pause. I was trying to figure out how to unmute myself. So I guess we'll get started with Yong, and I will explain what exactly is boba. You may have seen boba cups or people, especially on the UCI campus, with a boba cup. What makes it different is that it always has a sealed lid instead of cap, and it always has a really fat straw. The reason why you need a fat straw is so that you can actually drink up the boba, which are the tiny black balls at the bottom of the drink. They're made of tapioca starch and have a chewy texture, and they're usually sweetened with brown sugar or with honey to give it a little bit of flavor. Oh, Yong, do you want to share a little bit about boba?
Oh, I thought you're gonna. Before we start, we go to the questions. Judy, I'm wondering. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I'm just wondering, as a fun activity, could you do a poll of the audience and see how many people are boba fans and boba tea lovers? Would that be okay?
I think it might be hard for us to do that right now, Yong, but okay. Folks, please feel free to write in the Q&A if you're a fan of boba and maybe your favorite flavor, places that you like to go. So please go ahead and do that in the Q&A.
Okay.
Yong, would you like me to continue with how boba is made?
With,
and also...
yeah, continue with the boba story, and then okay. We can start with the questions. I think you have prepared some good questions.
Yeah, that way people have some time to send stuff in. So you've probably heard of boba, and some people call it bubble tea. Boba, like I said before, refers to black balls made up of tapioca starch at the bottom of a drink, while bubble tea refers to the actual little air bubbles that form when you shake the drink. So right after you get your drink, you'll probably want to shake it. That way all the flavors get mixed real nice. And when you shake it, there's little bubbles. So that's why it's called bubble tea. Boba itself is similar to pasta in that you can make it either fresh from dough and then boil it, or you can buy it pre-made where it's going to be these hard little black balls, and then you can boil it for a period of time. And then once it's kind of soft, you will soak in brown sugar or honey for flavor before adding it to your favorite beverage. Do we have any comments or questions in the Q&A? So in the Q&A, it's showing that we have several boba fans, and that Sky shared that their favorite flavor is rose milk tea, and Kaylee shared that their favorite is taro milk tea is from 7 Leaves because it's made from fresh ingredients.
There's some great flavors out there. I'm just going to go and publish these responses live so you can see what the responses are. But please go ahead, Audrey and Yong.
Audrey, go ahead.
Okay, so did we want to start with questions for each other, Yong?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So would you like to share the history of boba? I've heard lots of different stories about the creation of boba, such as that it was an accident and that one woman decided to put it at the bottom of her milk tea and serve it to guests. And it turned out that it was really popular. What exactly is the origin of boba?
Okay, great question, because people are always fascinated about the genesis of different dishes and beverages. For example, people ask, how did the chili pepper ever first got to China or Sichuan province, where food is very hot, right? And who discovered coffee in the first place? In most cases, unfortunately, we don't know the precise answer, and boba tea is one of those stories. But the genesis question should be asked and explored in larger historical contexts. If we look at the island of Taiwan, it's a very hot place. So cold drinks have always been popular for a long, long time. And because tea is a popular beverage, so many cold drinks are made out of tea. And CNN reported fairly recently that one tea house started to use the cocktail shaker to make iced tea as early as back in the 1940s, in 1949. And at that time, the store used a black tea. The shaking mechanism produced a lot of foam. So that's an example showing that people have always played and experimented with tea drinks in Taiwan as a cold drink. Okay, so no one knows precisely who invented the boba tea in Taiwan, but two tea houses claimed separately that they did. Okay, one of them is a place in Taichung, in middle in the city of Taichung, in the middle of the island, claiming that it created the drink back in the 1980s, 1983, 1984, around that time. And another place that has made the same claim is the Hanning Tea House in the south. The Hanning Tea House has itself in that claim has two versions. Okay, so it's very difficult to know. In one version, a manager of the tea house said that she produced the drink by accidentally adding some boba into the milk tea, and it became very well liked by everyone, right? And in another story, in another version, the owner of the same tea house, the Hanning Tea House, claimed that he got the inspiration while visiting a local food market when he saw the tapioca pearls sold by the vendors over there. The tapioca pearls have been a very popular drink. I mean, a snack. A drink, before it became a drink, a snack food among the people in Taiwan. So this is, you can see, what you can see is that, this is the combination of two popular things in Taiwan: the tea drink and a snack food, very popular snack food. People have also asked the question, whether adding milk to tea, whether that's Chinese. Actually, according to some scholars, including Professor Miranda Brown, who teaches at Michigan, and she said, if you go back to the Tang Dynasty, you will realize that people at that time actually, they added milk and other dairy products to tea. Okay, it's a tradition that went on for quite some time, but then disappeared. Okay, and picked up by the English. and now people in Taiwan. Okay, so this is so the creation of the boba tea can be seen as the convergence of different traditions in Chinese culture, right? In that sense, and of course, when Chinese food ventures out of China proper, right, to the diaspora, right, different variations, different diasporic cuisines emerged. So the emergence, the creation of the boba tea can be seen in that context, right?
Yeah. I think you touched on several very interesting points. I just wanted to give a shout out to one of the tea houses you brought up, Han Lin Tea House. We actually have a location in Roland Heights if people want to go try it. But the 2 points that you brought up that I thought was really interesting was also the idea of snacks and also snacking culture. And then how this has gone, the idea of adding milk to tea actually goes back so many centuries. I think a lot of us just assume that adding milk to tea was something that the British started. So knowing that actually went back so much further is interesting to me, and that it was kind of lost for a time period. And then we brought it back. Like that's
we want to take it back.
Yeah.
That practice.
Yeah. I know that you received a grant to study Taiwanese food and that bubble tea is one of the things that you're going to be studying. What else can we expect to see from your research? Is part of that, like what you just mentioned, tracing the convergences of different food and how far back they go?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, how the cooking of China, right, when located overseas or in the diaspora, became different, right? How the diaspora develops and invents new foods, new dishes, new beverages, and new cuisines. New cuisines. For example, in Peru, you have chifa, right? In parts of South Asia, you have the Baba cuisine, right? Diasporic cuisines that have blended into the local culinary traditions, and creating a new, very exciting new thing, a new tradition. In the U.S., we have the Chinese American cuisine, which a lot of people call Americanized Chinese food, but it's actually a diasporic cuisine that is very, for a lot of people, very exciting and very unique. And Chinese American from a family that has owned restaurants for a couple of generations, partnered with a Caucasian American, and they went to China and opened to offer this Chinese American cuisine, Americanized Chinese food. It's called a fortune cookie in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for this grant, for this project, I look at the global travels of different Taiwanese food dishes. Boba tea is one of them, and another thing that another food that I want to study in this project is the Taiwanese beef noodle soup.
Oh, yeah, one of my favorites.
It's one of my favorites too. It's a comfort food, right?
Yeah.
So, yes.
And I heard it's like the national dish of Taiwan, and that there's a lot of competitions for cooking beef noodle soup.
There are competitions for that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a competition I would like to be the judge of.
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to ask you one question about why boba shops seem to often have the same snacks, but I feel like you kind of answered it in that it's representative of the diasporic foods that Chinese Americans have created. Because if you've gone to a boba shop, you've probably noticed that a huge chunk of them offer popcorn chicken, French fries, especially French fries with different flavors. Like I know Factory Tea Bar and Tea for You offer so many different flavors of French fries, like sour cream and onion, barbecue, chipotle, etc.
Yeah, as far as I remember, the one of the first boba tea stores that sold boba tea in Irvine, that was back in 1998, around that time, at the end of the 1990s, and the store, one of the stores that did that, was called Champion Foods.
Yes, I love that
冠军,
place.
冠军. And this is, this is a store that sells boxed lunches and then and snack food, right? So boba tea is very much in people's minds, right? Grouped in that category of casual drinks, casual foods, for to go together with food on the go, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I know when I was growing up, there weren't a ton of boba shops in Irvine and Orange County itself. We had Champion Food, like you mentioned, and Lollicup, Tapioca Express, Tea Station, and
I love
Chocolate
Lollicup.
Tea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they all offer popcorn chicken. Like that was the to-go lunch that everyone wanted when I was in high school. We drive to boba shops, pick up some popcorn chicken, French fries, maybe some fried dumplings, and an extra large boba. Like that was it.
Yes.
Yeah. I noticed that there's a lot more boba shops opening. Like if you drive around Orange County in general, you can probably find a boba store at every single shopping center now.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, do you have any ideas on why this explosion is occurring?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the explosion of boba places and boba tea itself, this is phenomenal. Phenomenal, right? The in Southeast Asia back in so this is not just in Orange County, California, a U.S. phenomenon, right? In Europe even, I think beginning in 2012 or so, around that time, if you go to McDonald's there, you can find the boba tea there. So it's on the menu of McDonald's in Germany, in Southeast Asia. The sales grew, I think, more than 3,000% in 2018. The museum. Now, back in the U.S., 3 years ago, New York City did its first boba tea festival.
Oh.
Okay, boba, and on the east, that's on the East Coast, right? On the West Coast, in San Francisco, the Asian Art Museum. I think 2 years ago, revamped its cafe, and it's now called Sunday in the Museum. And the main guy behind it it's an amazing person. I think his last name is Fong, and he worked in Momofuku in New York City, and John George. Okay, so destination restaurants. Okay, so he developed his reputation, and he was offered the opportunity to revamp the cafe in the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco, and the beverage program are run by the founders of Boba Guys, and amazing. So it's everywhere, and it's growing. It's growing very rapidly. It's growing, in particular among the younger generation. Among the younger generation. I'm no longer a boba tea fan, sadly. Yeah, so.
Would it be okay with you if I quickly switch screens just to share a few examples of how it is growing in popularity?
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
So let me just share a new screen in the PowerPoint we have. Oh, how to escape from my screen? Well, we'll just. So for one example that I had for boba becoming bigger and bigger in US pop culture and even across the world is that we're starting to see boba tea drinks in a lot more TV shows. I think the most famous one right now would be We Bare Bears, which is a cartoon following the life of 3 bears living in the human world. And one reason why this is one of the more popular examples is because the bears actually have a song dedicated to boba. And I've even noticed in commercials where if someone's holding a drink, they'll be holding a cup of boba tea instead of a cup of coffee. And even Schitt's Creek actor Dan Levy included in his list of top 10 things he can't live without. And you're really seeing it appear, I guess, more actively and more thoroughly across US popular media. And one of the reasons why I think it's becoming more popular is because it really has become a hangout spot for many millennials and Asian Americans.
Yes.
A huge reason is that boba spots are open late at night. a lot of the boba stores that I go to don't close till midnight or even 1 a.m. They're not too expensive, and many of us like hanging out there the way other people like hanging out at coffee shops, with the exception that we hang out there late into the night. And the other thing that I think has really changed for a lot of my friends is that we started drinking boba every single day, the way people drink coffee every single day.
Yes.
Yeah, because I know maybe 10 years ago, most of us only had it once a week as more of a treat. But as boba has become healthier by using real fruit, real milk instead of powders and syrups, we feel it's okay to have it every single day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've noticed around you that a bunch of us millennials are addicted to it.
Yeah, along those lines, Audrey, I'm not sure if you know the National Boba Tea Day, the
Oh, yeah.
National Boba Day. Yeah, and that people have been promoting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's April 30th.
Yeah. And I've noticed that you mentioned before that there was a boba festival in New York, but there was also a boba festival scheduled for San Diego and one for Vancouver. So it really is
And Singapore
expanding
too.
across the world.
Singapore, yeah, started
Yeah.
several years ago. Yeah.
Singapore is huge on boba.
Yes.
And then I feel like boba is just expanding across the world because of its fun flavors and innovative drinks, like cheese foam tops. And also I know that salted egg foam tops are starting to become popular.
Yeah.
Could I just interject a couple of comments based on the Q&A? One comment that came in early on was about the cost of boba. And Audrey, you were saying that it's relatively inexpensive, but it is still, right, $5 or $6 a cup. And then another question that came in has to do with needing more boba shops, south of Lake Forest. And so even as boba is becoming more prevalent,
Yes.
are there certain places in which boba has not yet penetrated? Is there something you can say about the geography of boba?
Yeah, let me, Audrey, if you don't mind, then let me give it a try first, right? So in terms of the price, back in 1998, it was $2.50 per cup. And I thought that was insanely expensive, being a Chinese person. And in terms of areas that still that boba still needs to penetrate, yes, there's a lot. So so what's interesting about boba is that it seems to me that a lot of people, at least the amount of people that I've talked to, that I've formally interviewed, they don't seem to associate boba with Taiwan. Not right away, not necessarily. And so it has. So my point is that it has become a very sort of Asian American in the U.S. context, Asian American thing, and Asian American youth, young generation identity, right? So people use that to get to know each other, to build community, and to reinforce their identity.
So if it's okay with you, Yong, I can talk about the increase in boba cost. So I've definitely noticed that boba has gotten more expensive. It used to be something like $3.50, $4.50, depending on what size you got. And nowadays we're looking at boba drinks that are like $6 each. And I'm personally not buying that every day just because it is very expensive. That's about twice the cost of a Starbucks drink. But one reason why I have noticed an increase in boba cost is because the demand for higher quality boba has definitely gone up. Maybe a decade, 2 decades ago, we were all drinking drinks made out of powdered taro, powdered creamer, and we were drinking a lot of stuff that was filled with fruit syrups. While nowadays, I find that a lot of consumers want drinks made with fresh fruit, with real milk or milk alternatives like soy milk, oat milk, etc. And we're also wanting more of a bobarista culture, similar to how you want to support your local barista at a coffee store instead of supporting a super big chain. And I think all of those things together contribute to a much higher cost. And you're even seeing some that are focusing on having luxury tea leaves imported from China, Japan, Taiwan, and they source these things at the peak of their ripeness, so they might not have these tea leaves year round. And you can definitely see that Orobe, cherubic tea, and even Toko Toko, they all source their tea leaves at the height of the season. And when you do that and you don't have as consistent product, I feel like that is going to contribute to the price. Like you can definitely still find cheaper drinks at 85 degrees or Sun Mary, but if you want like the higher quality drinks, it is getting very expensive. I noticed that we're almost at the 12:30 point. Do we want to handle the Q&As, Yong?
Look at the Q&A. So, see the open question.
I noticed one really interesting question that I think you could answer. It's from Ryan. It says, Professor Chen mentioned that the addition of milk to tea fell out of practice after a while. Do we know why this was discontinued?
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, I don't know for sure precisely. It probably has to do with the changes in the dynasties and because during the Tang Dynasty, China was in close contact with the racial ethnic groups in along the borders, who used a lot of dairy products, right? So that could be one of the reasons, yeah. But I don't know for sure don't know precisely why that has discontinued, yeah.
That's interesting. So another question that we got from Sue Jean was any sense of how boba shops have been doing through the pandemic? My general feel is like a lot of small businesses, they're suffering. I have noticed quite a few boba shops, especially in the Little Saigon area, that they've been going out of business and that a lot of them, I guess, like obviously some of them are thriving, the more popular ones like Omomo, but a lot of them are struggling just because you lose a lot of foot traffic and some people are like, I'm not going to pay the delivery if you're on Uber Eats for a $5 drink.
Yeah, it's not it's a beverage, right? So it's not ideal for delivery for sure. And I agree with you. I think a lot of boba places, along with other restaurants, are hardest hit. I mean, they are suffering, and it's a devastating situation for them. But some places are doing pretty well. And for example, during the pandemic, I went to visit, not to buy boba, but to visit Omomo, right? The single most popular boba place, I think, in Orange County. Some people think that is the best in Orange County, but that's not my opinion. So I went over there just to see how it was doing. And as long as the store was open, I think the line remained fairly long. Yeah. So probably a few are doing okay, and selling some things probably even better. But in most cases, I think the boba places and the restaurants are suffering tremendously.
Yeah. I think one other thing that hurts boba is it's a very social thing. Like you have to eat lunch, you have to eat dinner. You don't necessarily have to drink boba. And I know that for my friends, a lot of times we go out after we were done getting dinner or seeing a movie to grab boba. So I feel like boba shops have to be missing that social atmosphere. And they have these huge spaces that they need to pay rent for. And one of the reasons why they had huge spaces was because it was a hangout spot.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Boba is very social, right? It's fundamental. It's a fundamental aspect in the formation and reinforcement of the sense of identity and community among young Asian Americans in particular, but no longer just among Asian Americans, I should say. Yeah, and tea, boba tea and tea in general, I think that's the future. Yeah, coffee is the preferred drink among people who are 85 years or of age or older, right? But it's over 70%, right? And then if you survey the Z generation, the millennials, right? It's over, according to some surveys, over 80% of those people they drink tea.
That's insane.
Tea. Not necessarily boba tea. So tea, you have ready to drink tea. You have a hot tea. So the tea market has different segments too, and I believe tea is the future.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Judy pop in.
Sorry.
Thank you so much to both of you. This has been a fascinating conversation. And there's actually 2 more great questions in the Q&A, but we had built this as a half-hour program, so I'm going to start wrapping up. But if you'd like to respond to the Q&A and perhaps type some responses, I'm sure people would really appreciate hearing from you. So thank you so much for joining us. As I mentioned, this is the kickoff event for Asian Tea Week, which is an event that's co-sponsored by the UCI Humanities Center. We have 3 videotaped events that are part of this week. So please check those out. We have programs about Persian tea, Chinese tea, Japanese tea. We also have 3 live events this week, and we hope you'll join us. On Thursday, the best-selling author Lisa C. will be coming. She'll be part of a tea cooking demonstration at 1 o'clock, also featuring Chef Jessica Von Rue. She's going to be sharing some really fantastic recipes related to tea. And then Lisa C. will also be sharing her own experiences and her background. And later that afternoon, Professor Yong Chen will be in conversation with Lisa C. about one of her more recent books. The title is The Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane, which is really a very emotionally powerful story about an ethnic minority within China, but also about transnational adoption. If you're interested in learning more about Lisa C., UCI librarian Richard Cho has written about a review of her most recent book, and that is called The Island of Sea Women. And in fact, Richard Cho has created a guide, a library guide, if you'd like to learn more about her large body of work. And then on Friday, please do join us. The UCI Humanities Center will be hosting a conversation about tea. So put on the tea kettle and join us and catch up. So thank you all of you for coming today. I wish you lots of joy and lots of boba, and a big thank you to Audrey and Yong for leading us in such a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, the 2 good questions are very wonderful research questions about the class basis for boba tea consumption, and also why it is enjoyed by people outside the Asian American community. Those are very good questions. I will look into them in my research and provide an answer when I have my research results. Okay, my findings. Thank you all again for coming. And thank you, Judy, also, too, for organizing this.
Audrey, do you want to say some more about your boba blog?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So the reason why Judy invited me to talk on this panel is because I run an Instagram called Boba Bitches with 2 S's. The one with 1 S was taken, unfortunately. And on this boba blog, my friends and I review boba shops across Southern California, from LA to San Diego to the Inland Empire. And it's just kind of a fun spot to document the creativity and innovation we've been seeing in the boba industry. So follow me and you will see that I drink way too much.
So Audrey, I'll be back to interview you. I have a long list of questions for you, but I don't have the time today. But for my research project, I'll learn from you.
You know where to find me.
Well, we have to do a part 2 to this conversation then. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.